With school about to start for a lot of people, perhaps it's already started for you, and maybe even you're watching this a few months down the road, it will still be helpful. I just thought, let's go ahead and get back in the routine. Let's give you some homework, give you something to do outside of this video. Does that sound fun? If it's not fun to you now, it will be fun to you once you figure out how to do it. And what I'm going to talk about in this video is your paycheck. The best practices on how to divvy up your money. Here's the thing, if you do not plan your paycheck and the money will have a plan for you. It's kind of like your dog or cat, you put the harness on. Some people do walk their cats. I think it's a little strange. Some cats are really good about it, but I remember when I was younger, I know I'm going off on a tangent here. We had a cat. We put a harness on him just for fun one time, and he just laid like a lump on a log on the porch and went, "Excuse me, what? You mean to do what? I am not a dog. I am a cat. Put me back in the air conditioning." But if you don't put a harness or a leash on your dog or cat, perhaps they're not all that well trained, and you take them outside, they're going to do as my dog does and say, "Ooh, person, let me run." If you don't put a little harness on your paycheck and say, "Nope, this is where you're going to go. This is what you're going to do," then it will go, "Ooh, look, let me go buy this." So let's talk about this today. If you focus on being this intentional with allocating money in certain areas, you can gain control and become more responsible with your money. So let's get started. The obvious first part of this is your paycheck, the amount that you are given in your paycheck, whether it's a handwritten paycheck or it's direct deposited for you. You're going to only use the net amount given to you. So some of you may have where you have health insurance that comes out of your check before it's given to you, or pre-taxed removal for a 401k, a retirement plan. So all you're going to focus on is what you have in that paycheck, plus any other side jobs that come in. So that's also income that you want to utilize and divvy up. Now, a tip here separate from what we're going to talk about in this video, but a great thing if you do have direct deposit with your employer is sometimes you can actually have that check broken up into 2 accounts or more accounts. So if you really have a hard time setting aside the money in your savings account and actively saving after you've already been given the money, then you might be able to set up where a percentage or exact dollar amount is automatically put out of your check, sight unseen. You don't even know it's there, but next thing you know, you look at your savings account and it's grown more than you thought you could do on your own. So just take all of the fight, the motivation out of you and put it separate. Now, that money that you're going to have in your paycheck, you're going to have go to 2 separate categories now, or 2 separate umbrellas. Everything should fall under one of these 2 umbrellas, and you have expenses and savings. So we're going to break down each of those in this video. The first umbrella are expenses. Now these would remain in your main checking account, wherever you deposit your check or whatever account your check goes out into. Now there's 2 types of expenses. You have fixed expenses and variable expenses. So let's talk about each of them. Fixed expenses are the ones that they don't change month to month. Here are some examples of those. Your rent, your mortgage, your car payment, your insurance, cell phone, daycare, internet, subscriptions, the things that you automatically know exactly what they're going to be each month. Now, that's not to say that none of these go up, but usually, in the case of the internet provider, not necessarily so. They just end up increasing the rate and expect you to pay it. Usually, these things will go up at some point, but usually you will know. How many times can I say usually? Usually, you will know when there is an increase coming. And again, still that amount is a fixed amount on and on each month. So it's easy, it's completely predictable. Now, variable expenses are the ones where people have the hardest time because these are not the same each month. They can easily get out of control. It's very hard to put a harness on these and keep them on a leash. Now, this could be food, so groceries, restaurants, regular consumables, so things like toilet paper, cleaning supplies, shampoo, soap, laundry detergent. This could be credit card payments because yes, on a credit card payment, if you are carrying a balance, it's going to change every single month because every single day interest accrues on that credit card balance. It could also be utilities gas for your car, activities and entertainment, extra principal payments on debt may change as well, and just any miscellaneous items. So what I mean by extra principal payments is if you have margin in your budget between your expenses, your savings, and your income, then you might have extra money that you can allocate towards debt, whether it's a car, credit card, student loans, or a mortgage, to pay extra on the principal to pay it down in larger amounts of time, or not larger amounts of time, shorter amounts of time, so that you pay less interest in the long term. But that, again, is going to be a variable expense. So to wrap up umbrella number 1, you have expenses, everything from fixed expenses to variable expenses. So you're going to figure out how much of each you need to divvy up from your paycheck in order to get them paid. Fixed expenses are super easy. Variable expenses are again, it's kind of like a moving target. You aren't really sure, and you're never going to be 100%. You may have to go back to historicals or think about it. Usually I fill up on gas about once a week, and it's about $50 a week, and there's about 4 weeks in a month. So I'm going to estimate about $200. And for me, I would estimate a little bit higher and put like $225. That way I have a little bit of buffer room. It's always better to have a little bit of buffer room than to automatically go over and then have to scramble to find that money where you should have allocated it somewhere else. It's always better to have more left over than to have overspent. Now, that's not to say you won't overspend in some categories and not others. And either way, that is okay. So that wraps up umbrella number 1 about expenses. The second umbrella is savings. So you've got your expenses and your savings, which you should divvy up out of your paycheck. Now, savings is the one that most people don't even bother with. So if you don't, just hear me out and listen to this. If you're one of those people that has a hard time saving, or you don't save at all, just let's think about this for a minute. What does savings do for you? Well, if you don't allocate for savings and think about savings, your expenses are going to be more in the long run. For let's say there's an emergency that you can't cover with saved money, then your expenses are going to increase because you're going to have put that on a credit card or taken out a loan or doing something else that increases your monthly expenses. So saving can also help short term, as what I just spoke of, but long term, thinking about the future you and doing something for that person. Now, with savings, when you think about putting money away for success, the more detail you can be more, or should be more detailed than just shoving money into a separate account. You want to break savings up into different buckets. You can use a separate accounts. So some people have multiple accounts. So they'll have a vacation fund, a emergency fund, and they'll have a gift fund, different accounts, which can be confusing if you have a ton of banking accounts. You can simply use a spreadsheet if you enjoy them, or you can use a notebook paper. All you have to do is say, I put $400 in the account this week or this month. $100 went here, $100 went here. We add that to what we already have. So you know that the amount of money in your account, the one account you have, you know the exact breakdown for each bucket that's in there. Now, within savings, there are different buckets. The first one is what I like to call reserve funds. Often you'll hear them talked about as sinking funds. I don't like this term because I just think mentally, I think sinking, that doesn't make any sense. I'm adding money, which is not sinking, it's rising. So I prefer to call this one reserve funds. You're reserving money, and this is where you help to save small amounts of money to cover larger expenses that are anticipated, are known expenses. So you would keep these in either a regular savings account or a high yield savings account. They get used more often than something where you have a larger savings goal. So you'll need to have access to this account. Make sure it's easily accessible, preferably one that's tied to your checking account or maybe even the same bank, so that when you know one of these expenses is going up on, you can easily move that money. So another tip here is, side note, I've recommended in the past, if you have a hard time saving money and always accessing that money and using it, put that money in a bank account at a separate bank where you have to drive a good amount of time to actually get to, where it's more difficult to transfer into your checking account. So if you again have that resistance between touching money that you've put away for maybe a longer term goal, that's a key tip that will help you there. So some reserve fund categories could be holidays. It's a great idea to put away each month so that you don't have this huge credit card bill come January 30th. So you can go ahead and decide what you want to spend on the holidays or allocate per person, and then divide that by how many months you have to save up for it. Also, pets. Some people do have pet insurance and it works great for them, but I have heard a lot lately. I don't know if you've experienced this. Now, there are some that, again, it works great for. It's been completely well worth it. They would have spent so much more money if they didn't have pet insurance. But I've heard a lot more lately about how much it actually doesn't cover and how much it has gone up in cost, which a lot of insurance costs have, and also the larger deductibles. So if you don't want to bother with that, or you don't have insurance at all, you can also have a pet reserve fund. And this is where you set aside maybe exactly what you would have paid in insurance, which the current average in the United States is somewhere around $60 for dogs. If you saved that each month in an account at the end of 1 year, you would have $720 in a reserve fund that you can use whenever you want, and it may be more helpful. So it's just an idea. Another idea for reserve fund could be car maintenance. So tires, large necessary services that come during different mileage milestones, or you need to replace a washer and dryer, or you need to replace an appliance. So those are items that I would say are good ideas to think about when it comes to a reserve fund type of savings account. Your second type of savings would be something that's longer term, something that's maybe 1 to 5 years. And these would definitely be nice put into a high yield savings account if you can. For example, we are saving up for a car replacement to pay cash for our next vehicle. So what we are doing is we are putting that money in a high yield savings account that currently has a 4% return versus in our regular savings account, which is less than 1%. But some of the items that you might think of as a longer term savings goal would be car replacement, maybe a big vacation, maybe a down payment on a home, your emergency fund, which I recommend for everybody. Perhaps, hopefully you can get that done in less than a year, but that's still something that's great to keep in a high yield savings account. Any other large savings goal that you know you don't need access to right away, it's best to put that, if you can, in a high yield savings account just to get that little extra more of interest on it. Under the savings umbrella, the last one is retirement. And I want to say to you, if you hear me now and you are in your working ages and you are not saving towards retirement, hear me out. I know somebody specifically who I hold dear in my heart, who's 40 years old, and I know lives up their lifestyle. They spend all that they earn, and they earn very well, but they literally have no savings, no retirement. And I just want to say to people to understand that there is a very good likelihood that you will live past your working age. So please think about you then and how you want to live and how much you don't sit there and rely on government or anybody else to take care of you, because you don't know if they're going to be able to at that point. So don't put this off for tomorrow. The earlier you can start, the better, but it is never too late. Now, you may not have access to a retirement like a 401k, as it's referred to here in the United States, through your employer. So you might have to do your own separate savings, such as a separate IRA. Or you might have a setup with your employer where you have retirement, but you may want or need more to help in a separate retirement account to help pad retirement. So, or you are currently maxing out your 401k with your employer because there's only a certain amount you can put. There's a cap in it each year. And then you might have to have a separate one so you can continue to save more, especially if you've gotten a later start. Now, you may have gotten this far in the video and not realized what I've been talking about here when I'm talking about divvying up your paycheck is budgeting. Don't say it. She said the word. Why do I say that? Well, because what happens is when I do a video on exactly how to budget, it does not get a lot of views because people are like, nope, don't want to do that. Nope, certainly don't want to do that. That does not sound like fun. Doesn't sound like something I need to do. Well, I wanted to talk to you about divvying up your paycheck because that's basically budgeting. And if you can do this, and I've explained how to, you can take control of your money. Now, I do want to address this, whereas you may have commented this video and thought I was going to tell you, you need to put 30% towards housing, 40% needs to go towards everything else, and then you need to have 30% going to different forms of saving, okay? That's the percentage that you need to use. That is not the case. I'm not going to say that to absolutely anyone. So some people do talk about allocating certain percentage of your income to housing, percentages to discretionary spending, percentages that all go to savings. Now, I understand why on some of them. Like some people say don't spend more than 25 to 30% on housing. Why? Because that's a huge chunk of your income. And the more money you spend on housing, the less margin you have, and it's a huge payment. So it's a huge chunk, and if something happens to your job, you've got that housing, that puts you in a very precarious situation. But as far as being an exact amount of percentage, and then you have to spend this amount on food and this amount on utilities, and you should put this amount away for savings, a lot of people are very scared to put away from savings. And what I say is put away a little bit. If it's $5, $10, $20, it's $5, $10, $20 than you had yesterday. And the other thing to remember is that all people are different. It's just like somebody who says, I want to lose weight and get healthy. Every person will have different plans depending upon where they are in life and what specifically they want to be or achieve. So person A could come and say, I want to lose 20 pounds and I have never worked out before. Whereas person B walks in and they want to train for a triathlon in 6 months. Those are two different plans to achieve two different goals with two very different starting points. The same thing with your finances. When you've got person A who saves nothing and has very little margin, meaning room between income expenses, and then you've got person B who has a house, cars that are all paid for, but very little retirement savings. These are two people with very different goals, and their percentages of what they're going to put in different categories are going to be very different. What matters at the end of the day is getting ahead, is prioritizing living within your means while also saving. Most of the time, it's just starting. It's just sitting down and intentionally divvying up and telling that money where it's going to go, putting the harness on it and the leash and saying, okay, got a pack of 10 puppies here. This is where all the 10 puppies are going to go this month. And if you do that, you can start to make progress. Even if it's a little bit each day, it will be impactful. You can look back over the last year after you've been doing this and go, whoa, at the time, I didn't realize what I was doing or how big of a difference it was going to make. Now I can look back at it from a year ago and say, that is amazing. And those results will help keep you going and keep you growing in your financial goals. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you understand that this is a great way to sit down and get control of your money, and I hope that it was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I look forward to seeing you again next weekend for a new video.